thank you, Graham and Roger, for those kind words. Now, hands up, who went to the Olympics this summer? Wasn't it absolutely amazing? Yes. Now, I was lucky enough to go on Super Saturday with my family, and I saw Jessica Ennis throwing the javelin on the way to gold. Now, I think what struck me most, though, apart from the amazing atmosphere in this beautiful and thankfully rain-free city, was the sheer determination of all those athletes. Now, it might surprise you that this biography, Aiming High, published by Matador, which were available in all good booksellers from the 1st of January, it's about a Jessica Ennis of an earlier era. It's about another javelin thrower with seemingly endless amounts of determination. Now, I bet you all thought it was about skiing, didn't you? Now, as well as setting up a ski company, Erna threw the javelin on behalf of her native Austria. She represented them at the Amateur Athletics Championships here in London in 1932, and she threw the javelin an impressive 107 feet 4 inches. A fact that I learnt from my research for the book. Now, Erna came second only to the British record holder at the time, Edith Halstead, who was known to her friends as Eddie. Now, when you consider that Eddie Halstead was later found to be Mr. Edwin Halstead, Erna's achievement becomes all the more remarkable. She was actually the world champion at the time. So now the year that Erna should have won that athletics championship was also the year that she took her first group away from on holiday. And she was spending half of her time in her home city of Vienna at the time and half here in London. And people may not know this, but she was writing a doctoral thesis on a Victorian poet called Lord de Tabley. Very obscure at the time, even more obscure now. But she needed a way to pay for her trips back to see her family, and hit on the idea of taking these fellow students back to Solden, which we heard. And now, next month, 17th of November 2012, it'll be the 80th anniversary of that advert appearing on the front page of the Morning Post, which has long since gone, unfortunately. And it said, Austria, fortnight, £15 only, including rail and hotel, arranged by young Viennese graduate for young people leaving Christmas. Now, skiing in 1932 was not what it is today, and we've seen that, I think, from Peter and Graham's film. And I just wanted to read from the book what one of those students on that trip, Leo Baldy Sassoon, said about it. The very term Viennese graduate seemed full of romance and aided our decision. The day arrived when we were to meet this Viennese graduate by the clock at Victoria Station. We did not openly show ourselves, but from afar surveyed the scene to see what we were in for. We eventually joined the group just before departure. We boarded the train, but disliking pleasant remarks, we moved to another compartment. And however, at the Swiss frontier at Bâle, the train split in two, and we realised too late we were in the wrong place. We ended up becoming separated from Erna and the other intrepid skiers, eventually arriving in Solden 5 hours after the others. Erna recalled this trip later. We stayed at the Hotel Post, run by Izzy Rimmel, and spent a hilarious Christmas. My party did not like caraway seeds, salami sausage, and plumeau beds, I remember, and when I rose in defence of my home country, they put out a little notice on the table, joke in progress. She added there were no lifts to Hochsolden, not even a bus to Oberville. We just walked uphill on sealskins and enjoyed our glühwein the more for all the exercise we took. And Leo Sassoon talks a little bit about the après-ski at the time, which Peter referred to in that film. Our evenings were spent dancing, complete with ski boots, and playing Where Are You, Moriarty, and other games in which one spends a long time on the floor. That's not so different from today's hours. Now, I don't know if anyone knows, but Where Are You, Moriarty? It's a parlour game in which participants lie blindfolded on the floor and try to hit each other with rolled up newspapers. Now, despite those lack of facilities, the trip was considered a success, and Erna went on to take more than 300 people skiing before the Second World War intervened. Now, that put a temporary stop to her activities, but Erna, always an innovator, came up with the idea of running house parties for educated people in country houses around the country, more of which you'll see later. After the war, in which time she was first tried as an enemy alien, and then ended up working for the BBC translating the speeches of Hitler and Goebbels. She formally set herself up in business as the Erna Low travel service, recognising that her name had already become something of a guarantee of quality. Now, the knowledge that Erna had visited a resort and a hotel herself became something of a trademark. Now, she was indefatigable, as we've heard. Erna would regularly visit 15 hotels a day on these scouting trips. Now, as someone who's done hotel inspections as a travel journalist, I take my hat off to her. And this personal attention, it really shone through in those brochures, which she researched, photographed, and wrote herself, often staying up till 5 in the morning, hunched over a pen and paper and a box of chocolates. And she would churn them out too. Companies these days produce 1 or 2 brochures a year. She would do 15 aimed at different target markets. And reading them today, she comes across as a sort of pre-internet TripAdvisor. Now, one travel industry reviewer wrote at the time that Erna's brochure always ended up jumbled because it was a hodgepodge of her own ideas and those stolen from other companies, subtly improved by Erna. That reviewer wrote, "Her brochure is loved by travel writers seeking something different. It tells you how to sunbathe, for instance." It was a formula that attracted the growing British middle class who were only just getting used to the idea that they needed an overseas holiday. At her peak, she was taking tens of thousands of people skiing, taking them to Mediterranean resorts that she discovered for beach holidays, and on all sorts of specialist holidays. One springs to mind in particular, where she took a group of blind people to Vienna so that they could feel the statues in the city parks. Now, this constant desire to share great places lasted throughout her life, and made the company the success it undoubtedly was and still is. Now, I'll hold my hands up now and say I never met her, which could be seen as something of a disadvantage for a biographer. Now, but luckily, Erna was an inveterate hoarder. She kept everything, as we heard from Joanna. She kept cuttings, adverts from newspapers, letters to friends and from friends, everything. And also, she kept hundreds of pages of notes for an autobiography that she was hoping to write, but sadly never finished. Now, I'm really, really pleased to see so many people here today that are interviewed for this book. Now, interviewing friends and colleagues of a biography subject is always going to be a delicate matter, I think, and those people were rightly protective of Erna's memory and legacy. Now, I hope, in aiming high, that I've created a fitting memorial to her great achievements, as well as trying to understand some of those difficult events in her life that made her what she was. Now, I just wanted to end with some of Erna's own words. In the notes of her autobiography, she wrote something that sums up everything about her success, I believe, and I wanted to share that with you. And I won't try to do the accents, although when I was interviewing Robbie, he did a very good job at it, so maybe he'll give you that later. Anyway, she said, "I came over here in 1931 as a young student, with 10 borrowed pounds in my pocket and bags full of optimism. It just never occurred to me that anything could go wrong. The world was there to be explored, and England was a country full of promise and opportunities." I think that's something we can all agree with. So thank you everybody who helped put this book together. Thank you all for coming, and have a good night.